Fiukifu Beleia, Fiukifu Digamo, that is respectively in the Tboli language and also Blaan language. Today is a very good day to really have another Indigenous Peoples Month speaker series. And I am honored to have a very empowered young man. I have not met in person, hindi pa po kami nagkita in person, but we have lots of things in common with respect to Indigenous peoples advocacy, culture and arts development work, tourism promotion, and of course, holistically promoting Philippines wherever we are in this part of the world. So welcome to the Indigenous Peoples Month speaker series brought to you by ACT International Consulting LLC. I am based here in Atlanta, Georgia, USA, and the resource person, our speaker for today, tonight your time, maybe morning your time, wherever you are in the world, is based naman sa Lake Sebu, South Cotabato, Philippines, which is also my home province. So the project purpose of this one is the IP Month Speaker Series is to elevate the voices and accomplishments of Indigenous peoples in the Philippines through a series of weekly interviews with notable speakers. The project aims to promote the awareness of Indigenous issues and showcase successful project management practices within the Indigenous communities. So this is our objectives: raise awareness, showcase success stories, empower voices, and foster community engagement. So ACT International Consulting LLC is very proud and happy that Michael Angelo Yambok, LPT, MPA, from Lake Sebu, who is now being in charge as the tourism operations officer of that town, to be gracious enough na paunlakan niya yung request to be the speaker for this month. So he is from the Tboli Indigenous Peoples Group, very, very famous, very, very globally known IP group of the Philippines in different parts of the world. And then why, we will know that more later on. He's a student of a Doctor of Public Administration, DPA, at MSU-Marawi. I'm gonna stop right here because I wanted mismo si Yumi yung mag-share sa atin kung sino ba siya. So that is Yumi. I'm gonna give him the host power. I'm gonna make him the host so that Yumi, you can take it from here. I wanted you to share kung sino ka sa pananaw mo, from your perspective, what you do. And I believe that you have prepared something along photos to go along with whatever you wanted to share. So the first part is I wanted you to introduce and elaborate further about yourself.
Good evening, Miss Arjo. Good evening to all of you. I'm Michael Angelo Yambok. No, my Tboli name is Yumi. So I'm a Tboli from Lake Sebu, South Cotabato. And presently, I'm working at the tourism office as Operation Officer 1. And at the same time, I'm also an advocate for culture, for youth and education and the like. And I'm also an artist, so I do performing arts. But before that, to know me more better, I will be sharing to you my screen, my PowerPoint, just to give you a glimpse of my work. Yeah. Okay. So that's all about me. Presently, I'm the president of Halabong Dance Troupe. So just last year, we went to the US, and we will be discussing that later on our international engagement. But this dance troupe was established in 1994. So probably we are 30 years now. And this dance troupe is very vital in promoting Tboli culture, Tboli arts, and of course, Tboli instrument, that including also craft like Tanala weaving. And I'm also presently the president of Lake Cebu Cultural Workers Association. And In 2018 to 2022, I was the cluster head of the Tboli and Ubo. And I'm also a lecturer. I've been doing a lot of things, especially my engagement with the youth in Lake Sebu and in some part of South Cotabato in conducting lectures about cultural awareness. I'm also a youth advisor, youth organizer, because I manage a youth group. We call it Lake Cebu Youth Network. And I'm also a cultural bearer. As a Tiboli, it's the culture is in us. So we need to transfer that one. And so much for that. Some of things about me. I'm, I know, just 2022, I was awarded as the most outstanding South Cotabateños. This is an award given to a person who did an exemplary work for culture arts in their locality. And of course, just last year we went to the US, but we will talk more on that later. So
Right.
that's all,
Right.
Miss Arjo, for
Okay, yeah.
a
We will
glimpse of me.
yeah, we will elaborate more further on the different things, the
Yes,
impact
yes,
that
yes.
that Yumi was able to make along with all of this engagement. There's so many. Why it is important that we have to know about us from our perspective, Yumi, is because there's just very few that are indigenous peoples of heritage and lineage that are actually very much accomplished but are not really kind of like elevated in a way that they have to be known and engaged. So it's important. It is not about boasting. It is not bragging. It is a statement of fact. As I'm
Yeah.
always saying, there's a big difference. It is a statement of fact, and you have the proof. You have documentation to prove that indeed you did this, you were part of this, but beyond being you is the greater impact that you do for your community. So first overarching topic natin is raising awareness of indigenous contributions and challenges. I got three questions that I've also shared to you. As the tourism officer for Lake Cebu, what are the main challenges that indigenous communities face in the tourism sector? How do these challenges affect both the preservation of indigenous culture and economic opportunities for local communities? How do you integrate these local challenges into your international and or local engagements? Raise global awareness, especially about indigenous species issues. So particularly because you are of the Moli Indigenous Peoples group,
Yeah.
yes, it is very hard for so many people to really say it the way the IP group is saying their word. But as
Mm-hmm.
I grew up with my Moli folks, it is Blaan is much easier, but Moli is kind of more hard for so many people. It's acceptable that so many Bolis are also referring themselves as Tboli. That is fine. But as you can see, that Boli or the Boli people spelled as Tboli. There's no apostrophe after the B, just like the town of Boli is in South Cotabato. So share about that, Yumi, about raising awareness of indigenous contributions as well as challenges.
Yeah. Um, as a tourism operational before I'm working at the tourism office as operation officer, I was born and raised in Lake Cebu. And I think growing up in a community like Lake Cebu, we heard or we experienced some challenges, as a Taboli. And I think one of the challenges that we are facing even right now, some of these are what call this discrimination when it comes to culture. But because we are now being educated and most of the Taboli had been to school. I mean, even in the far-flung community, there are elementary schools, public schools. In the center, there are college, and in the province. But when it comes to tourism sector of Lake Cebu, although as mandated by law, tourism should promotion of the place. Uh, of course, when there's tourism, there's money, but it's very hard to see people that despite of tourism, they could hardly have this money because, I mean, profit or income. Because I would say there is uh what we call this there when it comes to income, when it comes to the pricing, parang hindi siya balance. There
Mhm.
is imbalance when it comes to pricing, when it comes to tourism, because in Lake Cebu, most of those in the tourism sectors are non-indigenous.
Mm.
um what what we are doing here is to sell our craft. Of course, we sell our craft the whole day, so that we could have uh, food for the table when we go home.
Mhm.
And believing that most of the tourism related establishment are not for the Tboli. So we are working for the
For
non-indigenous people.
mm,
Yeah.
good.
But the best thing about these challenges is we have employment. That's the positive impact
Mhm.
of tourism.
Mhm.
But on the other side of that, the tourism sector, like, the tourism destinations or tourism spots
Mhm.
of the Tiboli area had been developed, but none of the Tiboli people
Are
had
managing
raised,
or owning it
yeah, or managing
or
the
owning it
said
destinations.
destinations.
Mm.
And I think this will also call for not just for preservation, but to have ownership of the place. Like for example, if you have streams, if you have rivers, if you have the falls,
Mm.
it's very difficult that to accept the fact that even the falls is not being managed by by the Tupali people themselves.
Mm.
Although we have the capacity to manage, but because long time ago, I don't want to go back to those 50 years ago, that this
Historical
land
context is very
were
important.
being
Why?
sold,
Yeah, very important on
yeah, to,
where we are at
yeah,
right now is did not just happen overnight, but it's also a series
yeah,
of the historical context that
yes,
has evolved. Yeah. Go.
yeah. And I think this history could, I mean, this history made a challenge to the Tiboli people to really be on other side, to be on top. Like for example, in education, in employment, and
Mm.
that's the very reason that in the local government we have some department heads, and our local leaders were Tiboli. But I didn't mean competing with non-Tibolis, but we
Mm.
coexist with them.
Mm.
But because the resources, when we say it, indigenous cultural communities, the ancestral domain belongs to the indigenous people. And these challenges would also, although there are some profit when it comes to economics, no, economic opportunity. Kasi nga, 'di ba, may mga tindahan, there are small
Business
parang
owners, yes.
grocery
Mhm.
stores, which you can see every you can see every corner of the road. But presently, we the Tiboli people coexist with non-indigenous people, and we also we also need to survive. That's the
Mhm.
reason why we have these local products, no,
Mhm.
na binibenta that we sell. We make use of the nalak. We make use
Mhm.
of the 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 clothing that you are
Mhm.
wearing right now, Ate Jo, no, to
Mm,
to
yes.
sell. And I think this thing would also give, I mean, yung mga local challenges to really uh yung merge. I mean, my experience with the local community in the 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 global engagement that I had. No, I
Mhm.
mean, going to the US, going to Japan would mean different from my community. But I think there's no place like home. Lake Cebu is different
Yes.
from other
Exactly.
places in the world, and we cannot compare that to what this United States can offer. We cannot compare that to what Japan can offer. But my experience in my global engagement could also raise awareness on the plight of the indigenous people. Like when you go to the US, not all not all part of the US knows about the indigenous people in the Philippines, although we are very popular globally.
Mhm.
Like when we went to one of the states in Hawaii, they were very surprised that there is a Tboli existing in the Philippines. And I think through this engagement, it's also a way to really raise awareness and educate people.
Yes.
Like for example, in one of the session that we had last year during the center stage, oh, meron ba talagang Tboli in the Philippines? Yes, because the living proof, kami yun, we are the living proof that there is an indigenous people in the Philippines. Why we are different from others? Because we have our language. The dances that we will be showcasing during the interaction, the dances that will be showcasing to you right now, this is the indigenous dance that is only unique in the Philippines. Yeah.
Mhm.
So I think we cannot we cannot say no to challenges when
Exactly.
we are
I
facing challenges every day.
I think
Uh
challenges can be taken as opportunities
Yeah,
because
and
if
I
yeah.
think for me, yeah, and I think for
Mhm.
me, Ma'am Jo, I take challenges as an opportunity. Why it's an
Yes.
opportunity? Because it is also an opportunity for you to share
Mhm.
your culture. When there are challenges along the way, there's also a time for you to speak up for yourselves. Yeah,
Mhm.
like first of all, discrimination. No, our parents had experienced discrimination in 1960, and we really need to eliminate discrimination right now because the education is at our hand already. So
And
I
yeah,
think with this,
and this part of what
yeah,
we're trying to do is also trying to raise
mm-hmm,
awareness and add voices to that as again from our
mm-hmm,
perspective. From our
mm-hmm,
perspective as indigenous peoples, that's how we can contribute to raise awareness.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I think like for example in Lake Cebu, not everyone, although they're all 65% were indigenous people, but not everyone are into promoting culture. Not
Mhm.
everyone are into engaging with what we are doing right now. But
Mhm.
because there will be a great changes when it comes to culture as time goes by. That's the
Yes.
very reason that for me, as an advocate, it is very important to go around communities,
Uh-huh.
to gather young people to speak about culture, to go to the Living Tradition Center to learn more about culture, to learn more about music, to learn more about dancing. But at the end of the day, it's not just about the cloth that you are wearing. It's not about the
Mhm.
language that you are wearing, that you are speaking. It's not how beautiful you are as a Tiboli, but deep inside us, the most important thing is ang pagiging Tiboli or being a Tiboli, it's in the heart. Yeah.
Yes.
It's in the heart. That is why
And
it
no
takes
matter
for
how much
me,
bloodline you have, Yumi, kahit na
yeah,
1/4 ka na, 1/8 ka na, 1/3 ka, you
yeah,
have that drop of blood in your
yeah,
bloodstream. You
yeah,
have that identity.
totoo.
Mhm.
And for me, it takes a person to be really passionate in doing his job. We are accountable for it, and we are very responsible in making our culture alive. Mhm.
Yes,
In
exactly.
transferring our culture to the young generation, and I think that's the best thing about raising awareness, despite
Yes.
of the challenges that we are facing.
So connecting to that thought of yours, that challenge, because if you're not going to be challenged, you will just settle down. You just think that that is the best. But when you are
Yeah.
challenged, it's an opportunity to do better. And it
Mhm.
will give you a much different perspective that there is something more that can be done. So connecting that, let's go on to your showcasing of the success stories. Could you share successful cultural tourism projects in Lake Cebu that have uplifted indigenous communities? How have these initiatives contributed to economic growth and cultural preservation? When representing the Philippines internationally, especially What are some success stories you have shared and how you have been received globally? So anything that you could share, please give us a tour
Yeah.
of what success story means from the perspective of the
Yeah.
Tboli himself.
So I would like to say that Lake Cebu is ancestral domain. So it is the indigenous cultural community of the Tboli. And aside from that, we also have uh, a small number of Ubo people and the Manumublit and Manubutasandai. And just recently, I think this 10 years ago or 15 years ago, as you can see, we have this kamdal. Kamdal is a Tabali term means move. So as a tribe, we really need to move. We cannot go back to 1950s. We cannot go back to 1900s. So our life as an indigenous people has to
Move
have
forward.
progression, has to move forward.
Ah,
And ayan, it's a very beautiful lake. And one of the
iconic.
successful,
If people will think about Lake Cebu for one
yeah,
word, I would say the Lake Cebu itself. That's why it's Lake Cebu because it is the lake. But that is Cebu is actually the Christianized term. What it is,
mm,
what it is really in that Moli term, Yumi, to educate everyone. Lake
Cebu,
Cebu, Cebu
Cebu, mm,
SBU, right? Cebu.
mm.
Similar with
Kasi
Laan Cebu.
yeah, parang it's a redundant. Cebu is a lake. I
Lake,
mean, a lake itself.
lake
The one
itself.
that you see on the screen, that's Cebu. That's a
Mm-hmm.
lake. But during that time, I think in 1960s, lake because it's a body of water. But in Tiboli, that's Cebu. Yeah, as you can see on the screen.
So
So we'll
technically,
go
you said it's
to
very important what you said earlier. It's English, lake and lake because Cebu is lake itself, and then you add
yeah,
another term, so it's lake, lake, literally, right?
lake.
But
Yeah.
that's how it got evolved. Maybe at that time
Mm-hmm,
when the creation of this government during the resettlement area program of the
mm-hmm,
government. But hey, they at that time maybe they tried to do their best from their own perspective, and now that's how they understand it.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay. There are different successful tourism project, but I think by time, since as far as my mind can still remember, during 1990s, I mean there are yung big na tourism projects aside from infrastructure. Those are the projects from the government: infrastructure, developing the lake, uh, developing the waterfalls. But I think one of the cultural tourism project in Lake Cebu is this School of Living Tradition. The School of Living Tradition was initiated by the Halabong Cooperative way back in 1994. That is the reason that we are celebrating our 30 years as an organization this year. Yeah. And way back then, the School of Living Tradition is a non-formal school. It's a non-formal school where arts, culture, and tradition is being transferred to young Tibolis. But this time, I mean, this is one of the successful cultural tourism project, although this is not being managed by the government. You know, this is being managed by passionate Tiboli individual who preserves, who transfer the skills. As I've said earlier, passionate people can do great things despite of hardship in life. Not just like Ate Maria, itong bahay na ito, it's Ate Maria Todi's house, no, School of Living Tradition. But this time, we called it Living Tradition Center. Yeah, Living Tradition Center. So aside from offering guests, the music, the dances, we also create opportunity for economic opportunity like the selling of handicraft mismo dito sa Living Tradition Centers. Like we have more or less 20 Living Tradition Center surrounding Lake Cebu. And in South Cotabato, I think there's one in Amguo, there's one in Tboli municipality. But the concept of living tradition center is to really transfer the skills, transfer the knowledge. But what make it successful, because it's not a government project. It's the government project. I mean, when you have good heart for people, despite of hardship, you are still doing things
Things.
uh for the community. So I mean, it's very operational, although we have limited resources from the government. And I think my definition of successful, yung successful tourism project, despite of the meager amount spent by the government, but it is still existing. And these centers had contributed to the economic growth of our locality, but more so in the preservation of culture. So could you imagine, just like recently we hosted Dayao, and Daya is a national indigenous celebration. And could you imagine how many people, both the artifacts, no, itong mga gamit natin, and it also contributed not just to the locality, but to the owner of the living tradition centers. So, and secondly, we also hosted the immersion of Association of Tourism Officers of the Philippines. So could you imagine that 600 people came and bringing with them all their monies and buy no handicraft, especially tinalak and the other things. And
Yes.
it's also a contributing factor to the economy of Lake Cebu.
And I wanted to add,
And
I think I wanted to add on that note, Yumi, the soft power of culture with
yeah.
respect to, let's say, diplomacy, with respect to
Mm-hmm,
international relations, the soft power of
mm-hmm,
culture and your cultural materials and your cultural identifiers, that is so powerful.
mm,
I've seen so many people in here. Really, it's like I can identify because oh my God, that is you got that from my home province of South Cotabato. I'm definitely it's coming from Lake Cebu, so they know
yeah,
Lake
yeah.
Cebu more than they know South Cotabato. How about that?
Yeah, yeah.
From the
Masikat.
perspective of how it is, they know Lake Cebu
Mm,
more than they know South Cotabato.
mm, mm. Going back to, representing the Philippines, I went to, I think, 4 5 countries already. So I went to the US twice. And one of the success stories about representing the community, especially the indigenous community, is we receive recognition. I
Mhm.
mean, although some of them would know, oh, there's a Tiboli in the Philippines, but seeing the Tiboli them by their two eyes, standing in front of them, is far better from just knowing
Just
the
knowing
Tiboli.
and watching
Yeah,
on YouTube, on social
yeah,
media,
on YouTube,
looking
and
at the picture.
yeah, researching about the Tiboli people. But it's also good that, talking in front of them, that this is our culture, this is our art, this is our tradition. Like there's this one discussion that we had during our center stage about early marriage. So they were so shocked that we could marry three, four, five in as much as
Huge.
the capacity of the family
Correct.
can afford. So I think we are being recognized and acknowledged globally. And I mean, representing the Philippines is not that just easy. You have to have uh, a knowledge about the Philippines in general, but representing you as a Tiboli, standing in front of them, would have no question at all. Oh, they are Tivoli, so there's no question. Here they are standing in front of us. So that's very, for me, that makes us very happy, knowing
Mhm.
that what they have heard. I mean, not everybody have the positive. I mean, outlook about the
Mhm.
Tivoli, but there's also a negative side. But seeing us standing in front of them, eating with them, telling the stories, the struggles of the indigenous people with them, that would mean that, oh, really? So now we understand. you
Yes.
as an indigenous people in the Philippines. Yeah, about your land, about your resources, about your culture and everything.
Because it's
Yeah.
coming from the perspective of the person for that specific culture himself. That
Yeah.
really matters. And that's why
Mm-hmm.
beyond beyond cultural promotion, Yumi, is the education
Mm-hmm.
part. So many are
Mm-hmm.
just, that's why I'm always saying, we are not hungry for promotion, especially if
Yeah.
we are getting promoted wrongly. And you know how staunch
Mm-hmm.
advocate I am for that one. People are just
Mm-hmm.
using us, indigenous peoples, and then misusing us,
Yeah.
misrepresenting us. You
Mm-hmm.
if we are not going to speak up, people will continue to do so because they thought that they gave us a favor,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
they
yeah.
made us a huge favor because they are quote unquote promoting us. Who is really getting
Mm-hmm.
promoted? Us, the indigenous
Mm-hmm.
peoples, or themselves and their personal interests
Mm-hmm.
behind doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So beyond the
Yeah.
promotion, I think the cultural education part, the indigenous peoples has a very, very big part and role to do that,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
us to speak for ourselves.
Yeah. And like for example, any group could also represent us internationally.
Mm-hmm.
Just wearing our attire, dance our dances,
Mm-hmm.
play our music. But it is very important that the indigenous people themselves, like us, the Tiboli, dance our dances, play our music in the international stage. And I think the indigenous people in the Philippines are now globally recognized. Why I'm saying this because like the Tiboli, the Tiboli performers are keep on visiting US from time to time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And like just recently, Joel, a member of our dance troupe, went to the US
Uh-huh.
for the second time. Not in just a 6 month span of time. He was invited by the House of Gong to perform. And I think
Uh-huh.
through that representation, like going to a small group or a youth group of people would also mean that here we are again. Again,
Yes.
sharing to you our stories. Yeah, because through dances, there are stories. Through music, there are stories. And I think when
Yes.
people recognize that and acknowledge that, that could be part of of their being.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
when,
part of that
yeah.
awareness right now, Yumi, is actually there are groups, international groups, like I could mention Parangal Dance Company
Mm-hmm.
based in California with Eric Salanyo and everything. They really, they are really intentional in learning the local culture itself.
Yeah, yeah.
So that
Mm.
because they have seen that what maybe they have done before out of people's like excitement to share, but because they are not immersed on how it is being done properly, they just try to do it from their own perspective. But it is also
Mm-hmm.
notable that there are some groups that are now have elevated their cultural experience by immersing in the respective IP groups and IP communities that they
Yeah,
are trying to
yeah.
represent. It is not that
Mm-hmm.
ipinagkakait natin sa kanila yung kultura natin. No, we just wanted them to do it right,
Yeah,
represent
yeah.
us right. Yun lang naman yun eh.
Mm-hmm.
It is our honor that, they have the capacity to get it. But it is also much better that if they will engage more
Yeah.
of IPs themselves as member of their dance group, member of their
Mm-hmm.
performing arts group, it will add more credibility and it will add
Yeah,
more flavor na authentic, na
yeah.
meron talagang culture bearer among the group. That could be their
Totoo.
resource person, their cultural master, and we are happy to share that to them. So Yumi, these are really all nice photos in here. Can you say a glimpse of the stories behind all of this?
By the way, going back to
Yes.
Parangal, one of the dance troupe in the US that I appreciated most,
Mm-hmm.
because from time to time they keep on
Asking,
consulting.
yes,
Yeah, and asking, is this proper? Is this
proper,
right? And I have good
exactly.
news for you. We are part of their book. I am part of their book. As you can see that one. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I with Bemarina, we're part of the book. We called it Adhika.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think it will be launched in the Philippines next year. I am one of the 10 cultural bureaus. No, diba? At my age
Awesome.
right now, do not.
I think I think I'm also in that one because they asked a photo of me, and then Eric, which is the one of the leaders of the team, is always consultative because since
Yeah.
way back then, they are consulting that. I appreciate that initiative because when I was working in Sarangani province, it was the group of Miss Alleluia, also based in California, that my dear friend Carlo Ebeo, na cultural development worker, non-IP but IP by heart, brought their team to to Lamlifao naman in Sarangani province na School of
Mm,
Living Tradition. But the goal is these cultural groups, they wanted to really learn the way it is done from by the communities themselves, and they're asking permission and they are consulting. So that is the best way. Kumbaga, dili magpataka kasi wala may exemption sa magpataka ka, di ba?
mm,
Kasi mas maigi na yung magtanong ka para you can avoid the risk later on of, of committing something na hindi appropriate or hindi properly representing the community
mm,
and or the IP group that you are trying to elevate. Para dili ka ma-technical,
mm,
mas maayo pa nga mangutana. There's nothing really,
mhm,
as I always tell you, Yumi, there's nothing wrong with asking. But lots of things can go wrong when you are just assuming. So you better be on the
mhm,
side of asking rather than assuming. Kasi when you assume
mhm,
things, what you think of might not be the same thing that the other parties have understood. So
mhm,
Parangal is really one of those international groups that I've known that they wanted their attires to be authentic as well, Yumi. They wanted their
mm.
movements to also be representative,
Yeah.
and they try
Mhm.
to really make it close as much as possible to the real
Possible, yeah.
cultural bearers. If hindi
Mhm,
100%, you can see the effort that they are doing to really
mhm.
try to learn the movement. And I think this is the product of immersion. They immerse,
Yeah.
they take time to go to the community, and it is not just the leaders, but even the
Yeah.
members. Even their members. So
Mm,
when you see them perform, akala mo talaga ay mga indigenous people sila, but some of them are, but not all. Not all.
mhm.
But we are thankful. So special shout out to Parangal Dance Company.
Yeah. And talking about the photos, no, I think this is my second time in the US last
Mm,
year. So we went to the embassy in Washington, D.C.
yes,
And we also went to Virginia Beach
Virginia.
and in Yakima Valley. So we visited the museum
Mm,
and ayan, we met uh Consul.
mm,
And also we 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 had an interaction with other groups during the center stage. And yan, yung mga tinalak cloth namin, we have some souvenirs for the embassy.
mm,
And what else? Of course. Yeah. And the last, I don't have picture here. Our last stop was in Hawaii. So
Hawaii.
we are very fortunate to have visited Hawaii.
Mm.
Yeah.
But see how you explain
And
about the diplomacy. This is already like
mhm.
diplomatic level, international relations level. And I think we have to also recognize the strong support of the IP advocates based here in the USA. Miss Prima, for sure, is one of those
Yeah.
that have
Miss
facilitated.
Darlene de Langalen.
Miss Darlene,
Mm,
some of them is in New York based, New Jersey based
mhm,
group. Soxargen, USA Inc.
mhm,
They're very active, and that is good because even though these people, most of them are non-indigenous peoples, but because they have worked and they have done collaboration, they were
mhm,
able to make it happen for you all to facilitate.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. So let's so that is empowering, voices of you're showcasing your stories. Now fostering community engagement, although a part of it, how can non-indigenous stakeholders such as tourists and residents contribute to the sustainability of indigenous communities in Lake Cebu? Are there community engagement efforts in Lake Cebu that have benefited from global exposure? How do international engagement help foster cross-cultural understanding and support for indigenous rights globally? I think you've talked a lot about these ones already, but you can maybe elaborate further.
Yeah. So we'll go back to the empowering voices of indigenous
Mm,
people. Um, Yung work ko as a development worker, I have been a teacher for 13 years.
mhm,
And one of the impact of my international engagement is going back to the community and establish this mobile reading program, which
mhm.
turned into a library now. So
Ah,
it
yeah,
was
yeah, yeah.
sponsored by,
Yes.
yeah, it was sponsored by Miss Prima and her family. No,
Mm-hmm.
ito yung library. And we have more or less 3,000 books
Wow.
upstairs. And uh yung mga platforms like in Lake Cebu to really raise our voices itong through our IPS. I mean, as
Mm-hmm.
you said earlier, we can give part of our culture for as long as when they take it, they have to be responsible
Mm-hmm.
in in doing so. Like for example, we have the FPIC, which is very important, and
Mm-hmm.
they have to ask permission from our indigenous political structure. And in that manner, we can also raise our voices, as an indigenous
Exactly.
people. And going back to my experience during PYLP, ayan, that was
Yes.
2015. As you
Uh-huh,
can see,
uh-huh, uh-huh.
the first time, I mean, it's just a dream, no. 2015, after 8 years, bumalik ako. Hindi ko inexpect. So, PLP really once in a lifetime opportunity. Why I'm saying this? Because it really makes my engagement in the community strong. Why am I
Yes.
saying this? Because I have been doing some community works with, especially with the youth before PLP, but engaging with the programs brought by this PYLP, especially with environmental leadership with the youth, it makes me more engaged.
Yes.
So I will be showing to you like this one. This was after PYLP when I initiated this community mobile reading program. So can you
Mm-hmm.
imagine that every Saturday I'm a teacher from Monday to Friday, in a public school, teaching grades 4, 5, and 6. But every Saturday and Sunday, I bring with me books along with the volunteers to really teach reading program with the children in the community. So we have to walk 1 hour to reach the area. So by that, when they go to school the next day, it's easy for them to read. Kasi nga
Mm-hmm.
'di ba tinuruan na sila. So every Saturday. So I did that, I think more or less 5 months every Saturday. Because it's my responsibility as a PYLP adult leader to really give back to the community what it deserves from me. And secondly, just during I think this one before pandemic,
Uh-huh.
yeah, we have this clean up drive to clean the
Ah.
to remove the water hyacinth
Oo.
in the lake. So I
Mm.
think we have more or less 200 participants in this activity. But what I appreciate most about the my international engagement, especially with PLP, because aside from making my work strong, I also have engagement with other organization. Kasi nga
Mhm.
'di ba pag tatak PYLP ka, there's a name when you are a PYLP.
Yes.
As you said earlier, it's our
Yes.
professional title.
Yes.
There's really an advantage
Mm.
being a PYLP because when they say, you're PYLP, yes. So how much do you want? Yeah.
This is
How
like it's
how
very
yeah.
competitive. It's very
Oh,
competitive. It
yeah.
gives you
Meaning
the
meaning
credibility.
it's in your shoulder being a
Mm-hmm.
PLP, not meaning to be very competitive.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's it.
You put what you have learned and what you have seen
Mm-hmm.
into a more strategic local action.
Mhm.
So how does
Yeah.
that led you into talk about yung fostering community engagement? These topics that we are having here, you can talk more about your fostering community engagement and anything in relation to your international
Mhm.
representation and also your future vision, Yumi.
Yeah. Like for example, in Lake Cebu, we call it Tao Cebu now. Tao Cebu meaning
Mm-hmm.
people of Lake Cebu, whether you are an indigenous people or non-indigenous people, because we coexist and we live in harmony.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing about our relationship to non-indigenous, because I've said earlier, they have this capacity for business. And
Mm-hmm.
what it makes more friendly because most of the employee in the establishment are the police.
Mm-hmm.
And they're also um, teaching the Tboli to be who we are, not just for culture, not just for economic, but socially. Uh, I would like to state an example that we have had a 1 week seminar for tour guiding. So imagine mo,
Mm-hmm.
all
Mm-hmm.
of the community guides, 95% are Tboli. So the Department of Tourism are, you know, doing its mandate to really teach us the FBSE, Filipino Brand of Service Excellence, and
Mm-hmm.
how to be a community guide for 1 week. So that training would mean a lot to us
Kasi,
as I mean, to sustain
yes.
our work as a cultural worker, to sustain our work as a tour guide, because Lake Cebu is Lake Cebu. I mean,
There's also more
just in a year.
alignment. And there's also the
Yeah,
sense of alignment to the strategic
yeah.
goals of the local government, the national
Mm-hmm.
government, the interests of the national government.
Mm-hmm.
Because every tourist that comes to your area is also a responsibility of the
Yeah.
local government,
Mm-hmm.
especially for public safety, health, and everything else. So given
Mm-hmm.
though the indigenous knowledge of the tour guides, that is something that is innate to each and
Yeah.
every one of us. But we need to also complement this local knowledge in alignment to the expectation of the tourism office so
Correct.
that
Yeah.
you can minimize negative negative feedback. Feedback can
Mm-hmm.
be positive, feedback can be negative, risk can also be positive, risk can also be negative. But if you can
Mm-hmm.
enhance the positive part, that is much better, and then lessen the negative part. That's why these trainings are very important. Kasi nga,
Yeah.
in alignment ito, hindi lang siya mandate because it's a mandate, but the local community can also see the essence that when you understand something, pag pag-aligned kayo, 'di ba mas masaya ang life?
Yeah.
Mas masaya yung ways
And
of natin.
despite of tourism, the Department of Tourism is much more on respecting the local community, respecting the
Mm,
local culture.
mm,
Integral doon sa tourism part. Okay.
mhm,
And I think the engagement effort in Lake Cebu have benefited from global exposure. No, I have said earlier
mm.
that uh ex our exposure in the global community, it's much higher yung expectation natin when we go back to the community. And I
Yes.
think one of which is yung being a volunteer.
Uh-huh.
No, I mean, when you go to the US, just five of you, you are not just representing yourself, the five,
Yes.
but
Yes.
you go there representing the whole Tiboli community. And when
Yes.
you go back to the community, it is your responsibility to really volunteer. Kasi nga, not everybody, not the 52,000 Tiboli in Lake Cebu can go to the US, but you represent them. So within your shoulder, when you go back, you really need to put that in your mind that you need to volunteer. Imagine mo you go to the US for free, and going to the community, you have to do the advocacy. You have to continue the advocacy, and that's the thing that I am doing. I mean, right after PYLP, parang I cannot see myself representing my community, then going back doing nothing. Yan.
Exactly.
'Di ba parang nakakahiya, my God. Free yung transportation mo, free lahat, ikaw yung naka-benefit and then patulog-tulog ka when you go back to the
How are you
community. I
going
think
back? How are you getting back?
um,
I hear you, Yumi, because there are some if because your interest is not selfish, your motive is not selfish. Maybe there are some that they are the benchmarking only their engagement with the IP communities, but actually the intent is more of capitalizing that engagement and that exposure to
mm,
the international community to benefit themselves more. That is
mm,
totally a different perspective for us na indigenous peoples, especially na when you think about the greater public good, yung self-interest given na yan eh. Pero saan ba dapat ang mas nangingibabaw? Kung mas
mm,
nangingibabaw yung self-interest mo, makikita at makikita rin yan. It will be revealed, unveiled naturally because people will see that in you. But if you see the consistency that you do things not because you are being told, you do things not because you are being paid, you do things not because you are being pressured, but because you just
mm,
wanted to contribute and you wanted
mm,
to engage other people, makikita rin nila
mm,
yung difference in that one. And you mean in all of this, do you also see all of this engagement from the project management side? You are part of my ACT International Consulting LLC mentee on online on project management. We have lots of chats and stuff for some of the engagement that you're doing, and you know how straightforward I am with saying things. How do you see all of this? Because you have engaged yourself in so many projects over the years. How are you taking a look at it from the lens and the framework of a project management practitioner?
mm. I think with this, I mean, trust is very important,
Uh-huh.
especially in project management.
Mm-hmm.
So I cannot have the project of this Tboli Community Library
Mm-hmm.
just by myself alone. But because, of our international engagement, that because of the
Mm-hmm.
knowledge that we gain from other people, like, especially like ikaw, no,
Mm-hmm.
like you, um, it could also add to our being at the Bali, engaging ourselves more on managing project.
Mm-hmm.
Because some project would die, not just in a long span of time, but I think managing a project as this with my
Mm-hmm.
engagement in the international, mas ano kasi mas I think mas sharp
Mm-hmm.
yung knowledge mo when you engage yourself internationally.
Yeah.
Yan.
Yeah.
Like for example, in the US, very straightforward. So, very straightforward. So ito lang, ganyan, ganyan, ito lang.
Uh-huh.
And I think yun ang nakukuha ko. And I am telling you this, Ate Jo, when we were in the US, one speaker would say na there is no Filipino time and American time. So when I had, engagement with the youth, sinasabi ko talaga yun sa kanila because it's a matter of discipline.
Mm-hmm.
So, managing a project could also entail discipline, self-discipline. Kasi kung you don't have discipline with yourself despite of this international engagement, parang, for me, parang nabawasan yung engagement mo internationally pag hindi mo na nagawang maayos
Yeah.
yung isang
So there's
project.
a level of expectation,
Yeah,
Yumi. And I think
natural.
for us indigenous peoples, we've heard so many stories of failed project, right?
Mm,
Failure.
yeah.
Pag associated ng mga tao, it's failure. That's why I'm very passionate really on project management and also especially in working with indigenous communities because how can you bridge that gap? How can you bridge that gap that we also indigenous peoples can manage projects accordingly? We
Yeah.
indigenous peoples can plan, can initiate, can plan, can implement, can monitor, can close any particular project. And then when we're
Mm-hmm.
doing that, we're doing it with excellence. We're doing it technically. And that's why
Mm-hmm.
this is a domain or an area where I think people, especially non-indigenous peoples, has to also recognize our capability as project
Mm-hmm.
managers. Kasi the more that we will build community-based project managers, I think we can lessen that gap of failure yung project. Whatever project that is, community funded, internationally funded, NGO funded, government funded, personally funded. These are all of the kinds of things that we have to be inclusive for all of that. So I'm
Mhm.
happy that we're gonna talk more about that, on the professional project management side. But as we are closing out, what is your in all of these international na mga partnership mo and support, what's your mga key takeaways that you could enlighten other indigenous peoples? Because I'm sure you wanted to replicate and inspire so many more. They cannot be Yumi. There's only one Yumi. But you can help empower for especially younger generations to be engaged, but be engaged in the right way.
Mhm.
Be engaged in the right way. You have
Mhm.
to really know from your heart why you're into it. Because if the answer is you're into it just for yourself, you better not. But if
Yeah,
you are into it, that is really for the greater public good, for the greater good
yeah.
of
For the
everyone,
community.
then do it. Because the benefits are just going to come. Pero if you are in it just for yourself, I would be the first one to say you better not.
Yeah.
You will not be
I think
successful.
mm, for me, if we keep on inspiring people, especially the young generation, the younger generation,
Mhm.
dapat ka-inspire din tayo.
Mm.
Ka-inspire din tayo. How to inspire ourselves is to work passionately, not
Mhm.
just for our own benefit, but for the benefit of the community. And
Mhm.
I think at the moment, people wouldn't understand that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they can see, ganito lang yan, gumagawa lang yan ng ganito kasi nagdadrama lang yan. And most people are
Mhm.
doing that.
Mhm.
But if you go around community, I will not share more about reaching out community for more or less 100 CTUs. And I can see the difference between you here at the center and you there in the mountain. So when you cross the streams and then you realize I am passionate about doing these things because it is very heavy to climb mountains just to reach the indigenous people there in the community. So therefore, take it from the perspective of an indigenous people. We have to work from the heart,
Yeah.
and that heart would shine no matter how the challenges, how the struggles we have in doing it. For as long as buo sa loob mo yung ginagawa mo, there's no
Mhm.
problem about that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. And that really makes a big difference. Uh and yung value that you add not only to yourself and your career and or your journey as a
Mm,
cultural development worker, culture and arts worker, or a government worker or community-based
mm,
leader is gratifying in a way na hindi ikaw lang ang nakikinabang.
yeah.
And you are doing things na ini-engage mo yung community and also the government as necessary, especially lots of
Mm,
this engagement. Like I'm seeing you share here your Russia cultural event, and you're saying sponsored by the National Commission for Culture and the Arts. It's very important because again it's a diplomatic level. When it's government to
mm,
government in another country, you are like acting like an ambassador. But now it's
yeah.
not only for your indigenous community, but actually on behalf of the Philippines. And that is a
Mm,
bigger perspective. And
mm,
I'm happy that NCCA is now Roel Huang Manipon, who is with NCCA Agong. I'm seeing him posting about the Dayao Festival, and I'm seeing lots of people already using the word Tboli, Tboli, and Nalak without an apostrophe after each of the letters. So even in that part, na yung identifier, it is Nalak, Tnalak, Lak, that's how the way the indigenous peoples are really saying it. So even if you'll have to go back to orthography and all of this, because with the proliferation of mother-based tongue education, I hope that they will still continue that. I've known about the SICAT initiative of Lake Cebu specifically. So these are all of these initiatives coming together, flourishing, and the credibility ng organization like your Hilobong Community Dance Troupe. You
Mhm.
have you have established yourself as a community-based group, but you have also earned the credibility to represent the
Mhm.
communities. And that is very important. Kasi aanhin mo man na i-engage ka pero wala kang credibility. And hindi naman lahat no perfect yung nangyayari sa organization. There's ups and downs. But how you come up as a group, as a team, despite of the challenges, is the one that matters most. Because hindi naman ito individual effort. Kaya nga siya troop, kaya nga siya group, kaya nga siya community-based. Kasi hindi ito pansariling, hindi ito private na initiative. So, you may any sharing about upcoming international or local projects that you will be engaged of, and well, recently the Dayaw. You have not really shared a lot more about the Dayaw. Can you give us a bird's eye view how the Lake Cebu Tourism Office especially was able to mobilize and organize and implement that National Dayaw Festival that just happened recently in your town?
Um, first, the DIAO, it was funded by the National Commission for Culture and the Arts,
Mm-hmm.
and we are very lucky that it was being held in our hometown, Lake Cebu, because I think Lake Cebu is really a cultural community with a rich culture. And
Mm-hmm.
of course, we have four Manliliha ng Bayan already in Lake Cebu.
I know
And
that,
our
right?
government, yeah, four. Five
Four.
nasa south.
Uh-huh.
Okay. And our local government, especially the tourism office with our good mayor, Remy M. Ungul, is very supportive when it comes to cultural activities.
Mm.
And aside from that, what it makes more beautiful because these ethnic linguistic groups across the country appreciate much the beauty of Lake Cebu. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The zip line, the lakes itself, and what is more tawag nito, more important yung hospitality ng mga
Mm-hmm.
Tboli. Hospitality din namin ng mga Tboli. So, we the IP keep on smiling every corner, every 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 movement we have. May smell talaga yan.
Uh,
And for now, yung project lang na my personal project is this Tboli Community Library because Ma'am Prima is also reaching out most of the time. And I would also like to announce, although don't have the right to announce this, but we will be engaging with with the National Museum of the Philippines. It will be established in Lake Cebu.
awesome.
So the
Awesome. Awesome.
for next
I
year.
okay. That is awesome. Yeah, I was tapped as well by one of dear friends and stuff, and I think one South Cotabato will have its own kind of like a museum that is also
Mm-hmm.
under the auspices of the National Commission for the Culture and the Arts. I'm going to donate somehow the collections I've had from the works of the late Gamaba, our own, the only so far Blaan Gamaba in South Cotabato, Afu Yabing
Yeah,
Masalong
maybe.
Dulo. So that is
Mm-hmm.
for the Blaan Tabi because everything that were documented for her being a Gamaba, that was part of my
Mm-hmm.
collection. So they will be coming to the Philippines soon, and I'm happy, that I'm engaged, and that would be something that I could contribute to my home province of South Cotabato, if that will be very helpful. And the School of Living Tradition has really a big impact for us. Sarangani is also one, and then now yung there's we have one living na Blaan sa mat naman siya. So it is something that we as a organization, as a community, when we are empowered, when we are part of the making, from the
Mm.
start, mas happy ang ending. So yun ang palagi ko sinasabi sa mga nagtatanong.
Start and
You,
success.
yes, you have to, hindi mo lang i-engage yung IP communities pag nagkakaroon kayo ng problema. If you engage us from the start, from the initiating, sa planning, hindi naka-compartmentalize kung saan nyo lang kami
Mhm.
gusto i-engage. Kung i-engage nyo kami, it has to be from the start so that we will understand. Hindi lang kasi i-engage mo yung community pag may nagrereklamo na sa iyo. I-engage mo yung community
Correct.
pag nagkakahirap ka na. I-engage mo lang yung IP community pag nagkakaroon ka ng problema or may nagko-complain sa iyo. Life could have been much better kung in-engage mo from the start, naintindihan kung ano yung plan, naintindihan
Mm.
kung paano sila magpa-participate, ano yung bahagi and expectation from their end. Part
And in short,
sila.
we will journey together.
Yes, owner sila. Yun ang sinasabing co-ownership. Merong
Mm.
identity ng co-ownership. Para at the
Yeah.
end of the day, you are not only extracting, it seems kasi karamihan right now, you are just extracting knowledge, resources from the indigenous communities, from the brilliant minds of our cultural masters, and then use those knowledge so that you can elevate it and represent yourself as if master ka na ng IP culture, right? You
Correct.
know, it's not fair. Tapos wala ka namang ginagawang bigger impact to bring to the community. It has to be at
Mhm.
least win-win. You know, na you learn, you give back to you have something to give back to the community. Kasi pag i-engage ka lang, tapos you do the data mining, yung tinatawag nilang data mining or resource mining, knowledge mining, tapos kinakopy mo yon, tapos you talk about those terms when you are being engaged wherever, tapos wala kang proof na you are elevating the community, it's not fair. You know, it's you cannot hide, you will be self-exposed, and you will just eventually be self-destroying. Kasi hindi masusustain yung effort na yon na sinasabi mong nag-advocate ka, pero actually hindi. Iba yung
Mhm.
intention mo.
Yeah, true.
Makikita at makikita kasi yun ng mga tao kasi it will always be tied up. Ano ba ang nagawa mo talaga para yung community mismo nakapagsabi na you were empowered by them. Kasi ang empowerment, kung nag-uutos ka lang at palagi ka nag-uutos ng mga tao, you are not doing empowerment justice to that people. Kasi pag empowerment, that means may kusa yung tao. Yumi, I can tell you are empowered. You are taking initiatives na hindi kasi sinasabihan ka. You are
Yeah.
taking initiatives out of your own heart and in your good desire. You wanted to contribute something. Hindi empowerment pag nag-aantay ka lang ng utos ng kahit kanino man. Ano yun? Dependency yun. Pag empowered ka, you create an initiative na
Mhm.
dahil out of your goodness of your heart and your intention, na meron ka ring makontribute. Either
Yeah.
may makukuha ka man dyan personally or organizationally or what, ano na yon, secondary na yun. Kasi no matter what, meron ka rin naman talagang benefit. For you, Yumi, I bet personally you have benefited from all of this engagement. That's why
Mm.
you are promising to yourself na I could not have done this, I could not have gone to these places if not because of my engagement to my community. Then I wanted
Yeah.
to give back. So, it's a win-win situation. No one could accuse you na pang sarili mo lang yung ginagawa mo. Kasi you are doing something to give back to the community.
To the
You are doing
community.
something to elevate the
Yeah.
community kung saan ka galing. And that
Yeah.
is parang worlds apart na differences. But Yumi, it is a pleasure to hear from you. Thank you so much. Alam ko na masyado kang busy. I'm following you on Facebook and I know your back-to-back events here, events there. But I think the resilience in you as a person is something that we also have to celebrate. And the support of your family, the support of your community, because you could not have done this. And as I always tell to you, in our chat, credibility is more than anything you mean. You cannot buy credibility. If others will have to parang they will not value their credibility, that is their choice. But as I always, my encouragement is that if you know that you can contribute something, you don't need to wait to be told. You take the action to engage others to push through for the cause. Value more your credibility, especially in the community. Kasi pag yun ang nawala, wala kang support from your own community, wala kang credibility in your own community, you will never flourish anywhere. Because the community can just deny you. They can just really
Totoo, yeah, that's
they
true.
can, they have the power to deny what you're doing because they don't find part of it. They're not, they're not, they don't feel they belong. They don't feel na meron silang ownership to what you are doing. And I think it is very part of the values ng indigenous peoples na yung pride natin as an IP, na yung cultural integrity natin as an IP, namana natin yan eh, hindi lang natin yan na-learn. Talagang it runs in our in our bloodline na kasi we are part of this lineage of people who are respected in our community, and we wanted to honor that part of the heritage natin, na binavalue talaga natin yung heritage ng ating mga ninuno. Kaya it's very hard for us to kind of like commit mistake somehow na mapagsabihan tayo ng ating IP elders. Kasi yun ang mas masakit. Hindi na
Of
masakit
course.
yung mga bash ng mga ibang tao, pero mas masakit kung ang ating mga IP leaders na ang magsasalita. And
Yeah.
that we don't want it to happen. Kaya we're
Mm.
trying to do as much as possible to the best that we are consulting with our elders. We are engaging other people. At the end of the
Mm.
day, it is not about the person. It is about the whole community. Kaya nga collective. Kaya nga yung
Yeah.
self-determination nandiyan. Collective always
Yeah.
wins community.
And I personally believe on collective, no, because if it is in my own personal, for my personal gain, I would rather stop doing what I'm doing. Yeah,
Kasi
because
wala,
at yeah, at the end of the day, nakakapagod, it's very tiring.
dili ba
But
viral
because
Yumi,
it's
no?
our job, no, kung yung iba nga are doing things as
Mm-hmm.
cultural worker, they are working for us, how much more tayo na mismo na nakakaalam that we really need to work
Mm-hmm.
for it, no? Like as I've said earlier, uh, there is a responsibility on our shoulder,
Mm-hmm.
especially when, as sinabi mo na, when you represented your community, not just internationally, but with in some levels of representation. But
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, it is not about representing them, but it's about what you'll be doing after representing the community. So for me, doon ako naghuhugot every time I have this opportunity, because I believe that it's not only mine, it's
Yes,
with my community. Kasi pag hindi ako Tiboli, I cannot even go to the US. So
exactly.
if if I'm not at Tiboli, I cannot even go to Russia to dance. If I'm not at Tiboli, I cannot even go to Japan. So uh meaning representing coupled with responsibility upon returning
And also
to
building on
your
your
community.
credibility, Yumi. People
Yeah.
will be trusting you because they find you credible, they find you
Mm-hmm.
responsible.
Mm-hmm.
And yun ang mga hindi mababayaran. Kasi
Yeah.
importante yun, especially international na mga engagements, tinitingnan
Mm.
talaga nila yun. Kasi it will be unfolding over time kung ikaw
Yeah.
ba ay talagang authentic or talagang pansariling interest.
Mm.
Yeah, as I told you, I'm not sugarcoating things. These are happening in different forms. But
Mm.
international engagement, especially, they see, they can do a research on who you are, they can engage on other communities, and they will be able
Mm.
to know kung itong pinapartner ba nila ay merong kredibilidad, meron kang sense of responsibility.
And
Tapos,
it's also about time that we, the IP community, should represent our community. Kasi maraming nagkukunwaring cultural worker.
mm,
And studying our culture will give them opportunity to go abroad. Will give
I
them
hear you.
opportunity to represent us. But we can barely see
See,
how they engage in the
yes,
community. So ngayon,
I
I
agree
think
with
it's
that.
about the right time for the IP professionals to be really empowered to represent their community.
Yep,
So mas masakit na yung topic iba yung nagpe-present na tayo mismo na totoong IP nandun lang tayo sa kabila. So
well,
you get what I mean. So it's
exactly.
really a high time,
Yes.
October is not just a celebration of culture, it's also a celebration of empowerment, no? Ano pa naman yung nagse-celebrate tayo kung hindi natin na-face yung mga challenges every year. Although deep within us there are these challenges, but I think that's part of it. But as for me as a cultural worker, a cultural bearer, and as at the Tboli myself, I can see yung focus. Kasi nga, 'di ba, minsan distracted ka sa mga ay ganun ganun. But if your intention is very pure for your community, kahit na uulanin ka ng bala dyan, that's nothing. Because
That's
you
nothing.
know
And
what you're
then
doing.
and then you have the support of your elders and your community members.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
You have to win the heart of your community and your leaders at the community level and your
mm-hmm,
elders. The rest will really just follow somehow. And that's how
mm-hmm,
you are able to, that's why nga yung culture bearer. Kasi maraming
mm-hmm,
culture bearer na walang respeto sa kanilang mga elders. Kesyo
mm-hmm.
nakapag-aral sila, kesyo professional sila, but they're shutting down the elders in the community. That is not the way to go. So, sabi ko, kung ikaw ay IP, check your attitude, check your behavior. Kasi kung feeling mo ay dahil educated, quote-unquote, ka na, at kisihoda kung ano-ano na yung posisyon mo in your life, in your professional career, ay itsapwera mo na lang yung knowledge ng mga elders mo, that is not the way to go. You
Yeah,
have to make sure that you will always be forever a learner from the wisdom of these old folks. Especially
yeah,
so, kukonti na lang talaga ang masasabi natin na makakategorize natin na traditional old folks natin ngayon. Yung mga talagang traditional of their ways and their mindset and their thinking. Kasi karamihan, they're gone. So yung wealth of knowledge from them, if you have an elder na 80 years old, 90 years old and above, treasure them. Kasi yung next generation after that, hindi na sila
oo,
pareho
mm,
noong before. Their mindset is different. Their ways of thinking is different. But yung mga 80 years old and above, their ways are really masasabi mong nasa traditional context pa. yung
totoo.
yung wisdom nila is ginagamit pa talaga nila yung indigenous knowledge, mga technology practices natin. Pero yung the 60, 70 maybe, down, ano na
Mm,
sila, yung generation nila is different kasi nasa immersed na sila or integrated na sila
yeah,
sa present system of governance.
yeah.
So, which different perspective yon. So, Yumi, if ever you magkaroon ka ng another na project, I think a forum with the senior citizens of Lake Cebu, 80 and above somehow, uh, to find like a local history project, if that is something that you can collaborate with the National Senior Citizen of the Philippines and the
Mm-hmm.
NCIP. And merong, di ba, may support yung and the DSWD of the province, documenting the stories of these old folks, 80, 90 years old and above, even having a good photo shoot of them would be cultural treasure of your town 20, 50 years from now. See, I've seen you very appreciative that Miss Prima was able to show you this is the picture of Lake Cebu in Decada 70, in Decada 70, right?
Yeah,
Because they were
yeah,
able to get a document. So in that inspiration, the same token, if ever you will have to do a project right now, a photo shoot, in all of their nice Tboli outfit for your old folks and stuff. uh not necessarily because famous sila, but because they are really like community members. That would be a very good a project, I think, of the tourism. Because once these old folks will be gone, Yumi, that's it. They'll be gone. You cannot bring them back. So for you being, I really kind of like documented her life and her journey and everything. And now, even though she's gone, I'm able to relive back those things and sharing it to the public, sharing it to the public. And this is treasures, not because they are kind of like recognized by the government, but they are treasures of their own community. So that is just something, that is something that's doable. Your own living treasures, not because they are, recognized by the government, but they are recognized by your own community. Have a nice photo shoot of them that their families might have, because let's just be realistic. you know
Yeah.
ang community natin forever will be there. It will just change. But tayo na mga tao, we are only visitors of this world. We have our beginning, we have our end. But documentation can outlast us. Documentation of these things can really surpass the next generations, so that yung mga matatanda right now, you can ask them how they say their words, so that yung next generations will be able to follow how these traditional words are really said.
Yeah.
'Di ba? Kasi karamihan ngayon ng
Yeah.
mga IPs are lost in our own cultural identity.
Correct.
They are lost. Like the stories of your Boli Kinibang. This one. Why are these patterns? Although marami ng mga documentation na dyan, but maybe other community members will still have a different perspective on how. Local History Project is very dear to my heart because we did that at the UP Ugnayan ng Pahinungod when I was volunteering before, when I was still a UP student at the University of the Philippines. But it's very doable. Look at the barangays. We have a barangay development plan, right? Check your barangay development plans. How much of that local history component in the barangay development plan really depicts the glorious days of the indigenous peoples leaders? Was it
Mhm.
written from the perspective of those community elders and community members that
Yes.
were there long before this new system of governance? This is something that you could think about. Kasi I've worked with the government before, and most of the ones that I'm seeing in the barangay development plan, masyadong very minimal yung information on the contribution of the indigenous peoples. Even though 90% na IP community ang barangay, but there's not much documentation of their IPS, Indigenous Peoples structure, way before the NCIP is promoting this IPS. This IPS existed. Hindi lang siya tinawag na IPS. Merong traditional justice system. But in most of the barangays and the barangay development plans, I don't know how much was in documented really that is part of that na galing sa katutubo na contribution ng plan. Hindi yung mga workers na nakaramihan nga sabi mo kanina ay hindi sila katutubo because the qualification of the government employee may mga qualification, education and stuff in which before karamihan wala. So, but now we have a very good opportunity to, it's not too late. It's
Yeah.
not too late, and it
Yeah.
can be done
Totoo,
as
it's not too late.
yeah, it's not too late, and it can be done even as a local history project of schools, even high school. They say they write about your community and compile those writing about your community. They do interviews of their old folks, and you compile all of that. Your tourism office can really benefit the
Mm.
different perspective of stories from these communities. I've been to Traankini. Traankini, the falls, Traankini.
Oo.
Did
Cold
yeah,
Spring.
yeah, yung cold spring as in it's very nice. Tapos yung mga community doon, going back to that community. What is the story of that particular place? It's there's so much beauty in Lake Cebu that I think a great opportunity for documentation from the perspective of IP, local cultural researchers, Yumi. Kahit na isulat nyo yan siya in your own language, isulat nyo in a language that is understandable in the community, but that is the strength of your community, documentation. Kasi you
Yeah.
will use this for the tourists to understand. You can have this written in your language, Filipino, and also English, so that you can cover the local language, the national language, and the international language, because your tourists, your visitors are very diverse, and most of your tourists are actually international. So that is my encouragement for you on as a tourism
Yeah.
officer, as a cultural advocate, as also as educator. So with that, Yumi,
Mm.
I'm ending this interview. Bong Slamat, Bong Salamat
Tibang
Beleam,
salamat.
Beleam,
Yes.
yeah,
Bele
Beleam. So I know a little bit of that Boli because of lots of my family members also married at Bolis from Lake Cebu, and also in honor of my foster family na mga Bolis ng Maitug, Sarangani province. That's why Bolis are very important and close to me, because not because we are sister IP groups, but because of these family relations that we have with at Boli people. So to you, Yumi, to your office, kina Miss Maria Todi, kina Miss Gamaba, Miss Rosie Sula, Miss Gamaba, Miss Barbara Ofong, I'm happy I was able to be with her way back in 2004 for the Wow Mindanao Expo with her and Kuya Bing. Si ano pa, si uh, teacher, si teacher, that Boli IP school teacher. Hold on. I'll have to uh, the very teacher for your Benji Manuel. Special shout out to
Yeah.
Benji Manuel. And also a special shout out to Miss Marlene Poe, whom I've come to know about the Sikat school way back in 2004 because of her too. And Ma'am Marian, Pastor Roses, the works that these
Mhm.
people have done also for the indigenous peoples and Lake Cebu, they've been to Lake Cebu. And I think they did yung turnover. I think you were there yung na turnover nung isang somebody from London, yung part of what they were able to have before that tinurn over nila balik. Yung repatriation part na sa Lake Cebu.
Yeah.
That is something, right? So we could never tell. But cultural workers like you, hopefully there will be more that works in the government, works in the different levels of the government, and also use their talents and skills to contribute to the government, to contribute to their community. So Yumi Bong Salamat Bele from Atlanta. I'm happy to be your ate, to be your mentor, to be your coach. We are all in this together. We are we
Yeah.
are we are on this together, and you can replicate this in your own community, because as I said, the more of us talking about us indigenous peoples, the better it will be, para dili ta para para mas ang discussion is from our own perspective. And if
Yeah.
the friends natin ng mga non-indigenous peoples will be inspired, then they will at least like learn something more from us. We wanted to partner, we wanted to collaborate, but we wanted to have an equal sitting at the table. We are, yung sabi nga dito, if you are not on the, if you have to have an equal sitting of the table, hindi ka lang palamuti, hindi ka lang display. Meron kang boses sa table na yon. Yun lang naman ang sa atin eh. Because when we have the bosses in that table, then properly we are able to be represented. People will not just be planning for us, but we indigenous peoples are engaged in the planning itself. We are not just going to be told what to do. We are going to be part of what do we wanted to do. What can we do? not that you just have to tell us what to do. There's a huge difference. There's a huge difference of management and engagement. So many people will just tend to manage us, but we wanted to be engaged ourselves. There's huge difference. So don't tell us, engage us. We are be part of it. If we're gonna make it, we will make it. Everybody's going to be happy. So good night to you, Yumi. It's good morning here in Atlanta. Bong salamat for this time with you and everyone in Lake Cebu. Bong salamat sa mga Blaan, mga Indigenous peoples in Lake Cebu. Happy Indigenous Peoples Month, Yumi. Your greetings for the IP month.
Yeah, happy Indigenous Peoples Month to all Indigenous people across the Philippines. And I think a big shout out to Ma'am Prima Howard, Ma'am Darlene Dilangalen, and all our partners in the US for always helping us at the back and
Yes.
to also empower us and to inform us that kaya natin ito as an IP. And in Lake Cebu, South Cotabato, no, big shout out to our Honorable Mayor Remy M. Ungul and the rest of the council. Also to the cultural workers. Thank you very much no, for the unity no among us as a cultural worker. Tibang salamat Ma'am Ate Arju for the opportunity to speak for this IP month no for your tawag nun, resource
IP month
person
speaker series.
speaker series.
Yeah, and
Okay.
we can do it
What
later on. Yeah.
yeah. So thank you so much and Duata Samgala. God bless everyone and tibang salamat.
Yeah. Bong salamat Yumi for everything and for the love. It's a happy it's a happy sharing and discussion for everyone. So bong salamat. This is a good opportunity for us na wherever we are, meron tayong kakayahan to share our voices. So we enjoin so many indigenous peoples. Kung nasa ibang bansa man kayo right now, you wanted Yumi to speak for your organization, Yumi, you are open for that too?
Yeah,
If
okay
yeah,
lang.
yeah,
Yeah.
if people will be if people will be able to engage Yumi, then you can engage him and you just have to feel free to you reach out to him. What's your social media accounts, Yumi?
Michael Angelo Yambok, yung account ko.
Michael Angelo Yambok, and you can follow him on Facebook. And you can, I can say that when you try to maybe come up with a project and you need a local person to implement that, I highly recommend Michael Angelo Yambok because I've seen
Thank
how
you.
he is able to do projects. And we are in this, small project, big impact. Sabi nga ni Yumi, walang mga resources and stuff ito, but yung kasiyahan, yung katuwaan that you're able to give to the community, dili mabayran. So, don't think that
Thank you.
because you are away, you cannot do something. Yumi is in the community. You just have to agree for the scope of what is that level of engagement is and celebrate your success, celebrate us indigenous peoples, elevate our community, elevate our voices. Bong salamat.